September 3rd of 2001. Nobody knows what's about to hit him in about a week. And on this fateful day, fires blazed on a large compound in Newburgh Township, near of Michigan, 3 hours away from Detroit. It's not a natural phenomenon. The story behind these fires and the story of what started them is often forgotten, but oh boy, it shouldn't be. Newburgh Township is a small town, made largely up of unincorporated land, a perfect place for a government sting. Its current population is around 1,688 people, and it suffers from high levels of income inequality. Very unique for an American town. Altogether, it isn't a place that you would ever think would make the news. That would be if not for the existence of two men, Tom Crosland and Roland Roly Rahm. Tom Crosland was born in 1955 in Elkhart, Indiana. He was truly a man, could have only grown up in the 60s, becoming interested in anti-government philosophies, getting super into weed, joining a local biker gang, and even coming out as openly gay. Meeting his life partner, notable twink, and awesomely named Roland Rahm in the early 1990s, after moving to southern Michigan. Roland Rahm was much younger than him. However, he had a child with his first wife, whom he later moved on from at the ripe age of 15 years old. Tom, who had begun selling medication legally, as well as flipping houses, had saved up enough money to buy Rainbow Farms, a farm which I assume had rainbows on it sometimes. Neighbors described them as a sitcom-like couple, the rough-and-tumble teddy bear and the soft-hearted sweetie. I really like these guys. They become sort of main characters in my head. Sometimes in difficult situations, I think, what would Tom do? The two also got involved in charity, funding several children's school lunches. And this, however, is where weed comes in. Both of the men were habitual marijuana smokers and activists, and were also big fans of John Sinclair, we're also big fans of John Sinclair, a marijuana legality activist and founder of the White Panther Party, a white brother organization of the Black Panthers, though for an anti-racist organization, their name and logo might confuse some lost skinheads. The two began a pair of festivals on their property, hilariously known as Hemp Aid and Roach Roast. Because as we all know, weed is something that's sorely lacking in most music festivals. The festivals attracted thousands of attendants, including Tommy Chong, Merle Haggard, and members of Big Brother and the holding company. Keep in mind, this is all done legally with licenses and fees paid. However, the police, who probably just needed to smoke a bowl anyway, became agitated with the festival, and the DA was as well. During a 2001 festival, police raided it, laughing maniacally as they did, I assume. Helicopters were brought in, the attendees left, and the situation became a standoff. You see, Tom also had a major beef cooking with Scott Teeter, his county's prosecutor. Scott Teeter really is like a GTA radio politician. Teeter himself is an interesting figure. During his reign, he put up billboards saying, and I quote, "If your sex partner is under 16, they won't be when you get out of prison." Which, I hate to congratulate the prosecutor, but that is pretty badass. People describe him as fairly stuck up, right-wing sort of legalist, and he had a huge problem with a marijuana activist, in his area. So Scott tried to get the two, on various bullshit, causes, claiming that they were somehow running harder drugs such as cocaine and acid, which, although, investigations found that some people had those at the festival, they were in no way, an organized ring. And other times, Scott would just go after them for, illegal minutia of having an excess of people, which, again, because it was a non-profit, wasn't illegal. In 1999, Teeter sent Crosland a letter informing him that due to their investigations, there was evidence that hard drugs were being distributed at Rainbow Farm, and if he could prove a connection with Crosland or any of the vendors, the use of property for such a purpose would make it subject to civil forfeiture. Crosland, not being the type to back down, responded to Teeter in several letters. In one, he claims, "And now you write a letter threatening me with warrants for my actions on behalf of freedom on this property. You may need to watch what you wish for because these rallies are going to continue." In another, he writes in a very prophetic fashion, "We are all prepared to die on this land before we allow it to be stolen from us. How should we prepare to die? Are you planning to burn us like they did in Waco, or will you have snipers shoot us through our windows like the Weavers at Ruby Ridge?" Now, it should also be noted that Crosland had employed a militia for protection at Hempade and Roach Roast. Now, at this point, an atmosphere of fear and paranoia was rising on Rainbow Farms. Crystal became further and further radicalized, I wonder why, into anti-government ideals. In a 1999 letter, Crosland writes, "If you choose to send out your secret police, I hope you are standing there on the front line to witness the results of your action. You will have the blood of a government massacre on your hands." On April 20th, 420 of 2001, a 17-year-old boy, sadly, ran his car into a school bus full of children. He later died. However, he was wearing a Rainbow Farm wristband, which, definitely means that Crystals made him do it. After this event, Teeter ordered a raid on the compound for tax reasons, seeking financial and accounting records from 1998 to present, which is the equivalent of finding Al Capone on tax evasion. Only if, Al Capone didn't kill people. He was just a guy. And during this raid, not only did they find several household weapons, which a felon like Crosland was not able legally to have, they also found 200 marijuana plants stashed in the basement, assumingly with the Mountain Dew and the rat food. After this, 12-year-old Robert Rahm, the son of Roland, was taken away, stolen by the state, under false allegations of abuse, which never happened. After this, having not done enough damage to the family, a restraining order was filed banning them from holding any more festivals because, what do cops hate more than fun? Despite this, the two did hold another event, a small party, probably not an organized, parade or festival, but they did announce that they would hold a Labor Day party, and definitely not in compliance with the restraining order. Based Tom, as always, ignoring a restraining order. They were given a bond revocation hearing date for August the 31st. And at this time also, a feeling of fear and paranoia, which I mentioned earlier, had erupted into a fire of it. A rising tide of angst and alarm. And more than that, sort of a silent dread, as Tom would begin to warn his neighbors that something was about to go down and that they probably wouldn't want to be there for it. Tom and his partner began to dress in camo, accurately assessing that soon military-style violence would befall them. One rather humorous anecdote from the event happens with a neighbor of theirs, a man by the name of Tracy Buggy Brown. A man from New Vrindbaden, West Virginia, a community associated with cult activities relating to Kirtanadada Swami, who took a plea deal of $10 million for financial racketeering charges in exchange for the dropping of a murder case against two other Hindu religious officials. Upon seeing Tom dressed up in camo and clearly anxious, the two smoked one more bowl just a short time before the standoff would begin. At this time, Tom then begins to set fire to his facility and several of the structures therein. Seeing the fire, a news crew sent a helicopter to the area, which Tom promptly shot at. So the FBI show up, as do SWAT, and they come heavily armored, not wanting to take any action yet, as the two were holed up in their compound. The next day, Carlton's parents are brought in to share one last beer with their son. Outside, protesters are ready and willing to denounce the violence which everybody knew was going to occur at the hands of the state. The FBI also bring in snipers, which you would think, given Ruby Ridge and Waco, they maybe would rethink that policy a little bit, but I guess I assume too much intelligence on behalf of them. During the standoff, Robbie's son, who had been stolen from him by authorities, had wrote him a note which, given the events which happened after, is quite heartbreaking. From your son, Robert. Hey Dad, please come on out, so no one gets hurt. I love you a lot. We can do all of the fun things we did for, okay? And I love you a lot, Dad. You remember all the good things we used to do? Playing paintball, playing bumper carts, or golf carts? I'm safe and I'm okay. I'm in good shape until you get out. Love, Robert. These are the last words he would ever get to exchange with his father. And he didn't even get to speak them. After running low on supplies, Tom runs to a local abandoned house to stockpile and forage, see if there's anything good in there. Upon returning to the farm, he is shot in the head, his skull essentially obliterated by a .308 slug. An FBI sniper had shot him from the trees. Rome, now isolated in darkness in the early hours of the morning, his lover, murdered by his own government, agrees to surrender. But a fire had been started on the upper levels of the house, and Rome ran out of the house, and the FBI said that he raised a gun on the officers in the LAV. However, many have denied this, and due to this possibly fictitious raising of the gun, Rome was shot several times by snipers. It's always snipers. And the real question for me is, why would he shoot at them? I mean, we know that he loves his son. He wants to see his son. We know that the building is burning. We know that he has told authorities that he wants to cooperate and he wants to surrender. So why? Why would he shoot at them? Makes a lot more sense to me that they just wanted him dead. So as of 2018, recreational use of cannabis is legal in the state of Michigan, which leads to the question, what was it all for anyway? But I'd like not to dwell on that. I'd like to dwell on the good times and the humorous and hilarious stories of these two funny guys living a Brokeback Mountain style lifestyle out in rural Michigan. And it sucks that they had to take that away from us.